sort of universal connection with people that the story had was what really struck me. I went to the Disney animated film, admired, wondered, amazed, awed, but then thought, you know, that was 1950 and there is room now for a new Cinderella.
We must simply have courage and be kind, mustn't we?
Yes. You're right.
Mr. Branagh, the director of Cinderella, thank you so much for coming to ArcLight Sherman Oaks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Nice to be here. A theatre I've visited many times myself.
Oh, excellent.
Just as a normal punter, yeah.
Normal punter. I love your accent, by the way. This is going to be fun. You're the director of Thor, and most recently, I believe, Jack Ryan.
Yes. And for a while, there was a sense that I was the Shakespeare guy.
And yet, you are sort of a filmmaker without a label. Has it mostly been by design?
I have definitely responded to things that have surprised me, that engage me passionately, and I like the atmosphere around a project when the people you work with, the people who gave you the job are excited too, because they, on one level, they're not quite sure whether you can do it, but they know you can do other things.
It's the music, and it's the movement, it's the air, and it's the colour, it's absolutely the centre of Cinderella.
I sat with Robert Stromberg in this very same spot in front of costumes for Maleficent. And when I interviewed him, I asked him, what were your barometers along the way for success? What were you asking yourself to know if you were on the right track with this film?
I thought that we had an opportunity with a tale that some people might immediately think of centers around a victim, a woman who passively receives cruelty, ignorance, and equally passively simply signs up for the idea that she might marry a celebrity, or a prince, we call him. That wasn't going to live in 2015. But actually, a reason to understand why Cinderella stays, why she chooses to ask the stepmother, played beautifully by Cate Blanchett, and she asks, why? Why are you so cruel? She tries to understand it. She tries to turn the other cheek. And you see this non-violent resistance working. She thinks about other people and she listens to what her mother says. Have courage
and be kind.
And I felt that if we could let Cinderella have those qualities, that we'd be doing something very important for the audience as well. They might actually end up walking out quite inspired.
Who's this for?
You mentioned Cate Blanchett and what a phenomenal performance as a stepmother.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but notice that some of the details of her complicated past were hinted at but not really explained. Seems like the setup for an origin story.
Wow, what an interesting thought.
It'd be so much fun. I mean, Maleficent was fantastic for that reason. It's always what makes someone tick. That's what makes something contemporary. It's not having sort of some modern twist to it, which this doesn't have. It's simply knowing why people do what they do, which you didn't get at all, really, from the animated classic. I'll be there in a heartbeat. Call my agent, Disney.
How perfectly charming.
I have a quote from the film. Stepmother was a woman of keen feeling
and refined taste, and she too had known grief, but she wore it wonderfully well.
When Chris Weitz was the screenwriter,
Yes, he was.
What was your first reaction when you read this script?
Our sensibilities were often in total sync. To be unafraid to be heartfelt, talk about big things in a simple way, because Disney movies often deal with important issues that are being introduced to young people for the first time.
We're hunting, you see. It's what's done.
Just because it's what's done doesn't mean it's what should be done.
Right again.
My favorite moment in the film is the above the bed shot during the passing of the king.
Yeah.
Whose choice was that to have Richard, to have Kit curl up next to his dad like that?
Well, I'm going to say modestly, it was my idea, because it was.
Don't be modest, you're the film's director.
I remember somebody saying at the time with that scene, is that a little too much? I said, I don't think so. I've lost my dad, I was there when he passed on, and I know what that feels like.
I wanted to show him as a son, as well as a king, going through as much as Cinderella does. You know, life is real for these people too.
Chris's script had that compassion. It had that compassion and that humanity, and that was always what I wanted to inflect.
One of the questions that it answers, who would wear glass shoes?
I tell you what, this is a movie that made me understand a little bit about women and shoes. They are insanely obsessive about them. I said to Lily James, I said, so You know what, I've come to think that I think the movie, I think it's about humanity, I think it's about the family circle, I think it's about people's capacity to be happy. She said, Ken, it's a movie about a pair of killer shoes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the shoe, without the shoe, there's no film, is there? Because that's his key to finding her, and it's like an engagement ring slipping on a finger, and then put a slipper on it.
You know, we come to see movies in the dark in great big numbers, you know, to see and be reminded of things that we go through. Someone once said we read to know that we are not alone, and I think sometimes we come and see fairy tales because if the underdog can triumph in the end, maybe we can all do well.